What's up, everyone? Welcome to Mets Off Day Live, presented by Planet Fitness. Join Planet Fitness for $1 down. The deal ends September 30th. I'm your host, Michelle Margaux, and joining me today is SNY analyst and former Met Todd Zeile, and then former Met and current podcaster / YouTuber Trevor May. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Good to be here, Michelle. And I think there's a lot more descriptions of Trevor. I've seen the work he does online.
We'd be here all day. I'd like to dabble, like to do a lot of different things, not necessarily be mastered at anything, but,
You might have to teach me a little bit. As Michelle knows well, I am very tech illiterate and social media unsavvy. So
I'm at your service, man. Anything you want to know, I got you.
All right.
You said it, not me, Todd. All right. Well, since the Mets' last off day, they took 2 of 3 from the Reds and then 2 of 3 from Toronto. And in yesterday's game, Lindor broke up a no-hit bid with a home run to tie the game. And then the rest of the offense tacked on 5 ninth-inning runs. And Keith Radd pointed out that in the 9th inning on September 11th, 11 Mets came up to bat, which gave me goosebumps. Of course, 9-11, 9th inning, 11 Mets coming up to bat. But Trevor, I want to hear from you first. And then Todd, what stood out to you most from this last little 6-game stretch?
Well, they're winning the games they're supposed to win. And I think if you asked your just a Mets fan on the street that maybe isn't following close and they had to guess how things were going, they would probably assume that not winning the games, right? So it's great to see. I'm having a blast being on that side of the old fence and being in the stands, watching them play. And they're pushing when they're supposed to, and they're hot when they're supposed to. And that's really exciting. I think it's. I hate to get way too ahead of myself here, but there's another team on the other side who also is getting hot right at the right time, and they happen to have met each other in the World Series in 2015. So I wouldn't mind seeing that again. That'd be a lot of fun.
I think the fun part of that is that the ones on this side of town would be happy to be in that World Series again. But look, I think to Trevor's point, it's when you get to this time of the year, you've got to find a way to win. Winning teams find a way to win, even when they're not going at their best. And you saw at least 3 of the wins, including yesterday's, I think, were wins that they very easily could have resulted in losses. And they found ways to, scratch out a few runs, take advantage of mistakes by the opposition. And even with the offense not really clicking at all, they were able to scratch out 3 one-run victories in the last couple of weeks. So when you have that going for you, then I think it gives you confidence that when things do start clicking, you can get on a roll and be hot at the right time.
Todd, and then Trevor, after that Lindor home run yesterday, where do you stand on the Ohtani-Lindor MVP conversation?
Well, I don't stand any differently than I have for a while. I think that Francisco is making a great case for himself as the MVP. I think that Ohtani does amazing things. There's no question. He's got the world stage, and everything he seems to do has some magic to it. But that said, there's never been an MVP that's been a DH. And I think that there is something about playing on both sides of the ball, and something about the fact that Francisco Lindor posts up every single day on both sides of the ball and is a plus defender. And to me, he's also the guy that you could not imagine the Mets in this position without him and what he's doing. And I think that if they get to a playoff position, I think that becomes a big factor. And I think you see that race get a little bit more close. The odds makers are still putting Ohtani way ahead, but I think it gets a lot closer if you see the Mets get into postseason play.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that the playoff picture and the finishing strong has a lot to do with it. I think that Francisco probably holistically on every facet of the game is as valuable as you could possibly be to a team, defensively, hitting, scoring runs, being a leader in the clubhouse, talking to guys, everything. He does everything so well. And I think it's just going to come down to when a guy does something like for the first time in history, like if there's a 50-50 out of Ohtani, it's going to be a really hard, mountain to climb there, just because it's, Francisco's having an all-time year, but it's one of those like really strong years that most years have. And to get a 50-50, it's a tough thing. But if they do end hot here and make a run, that's gonna make a big difference. And I think it's the same kind of thing on the other side with Aaron Judge is the clear front runner for me, but Bobby Witt Jr.'s team, if they get in and he shows how big of a part of that he is, that's going to close that gap a little bit too. But it's just one of those things. There's two special guys doing arguably things that have been done in the first time in history. It's hard to make a case against that. But in my opinion, Francisco is at least in that clubhouse and on that team for the 2 years I was there. He was our MVP the whole time.
Yeah, I want to go back to that. So you both were part of very memorable Mets playoff pushes, Todd in 2000 and then Trevor in 2022. So take us into the clubhouse. Trevor, what was the vibe in 2022 down the stretch, and what did we not see behind closed doors?
Yeah, honestly, it's very businesslike. And having we had kind of a split leadership group going there with Max Scherzer kind of leading the pitchers and Francisco kind of leading the position players, and that kind of separation happens kind of naturally in baseball clubhouses because we spend so much time with each other. But having that was huge. So it was like it never felt too like momentum swung at any point through the whole year, and it's a huge testament to those two guys and how they approached their business, and we all kind of just followed them. So it felt like we had a couple mama ducks walking, and all of us were just kind of walking in line behind. And that's how you go walking every day. You just expect to win that game. And, even there at the end when the Braves had won, I don't know, 80% of their last 100 games or something, we still had that feeling that every time, especially matching up with them, we're going to go out and win those games. And you have to start there. You have to have that first. If you feel that way first, you're putting yourself in a really good position. We obviously know it didn't happen. And we weren't able to ultimately fend them off, but the feeling stayed. And that was something like I only felt one time before that with the Twins in 2019, where we expected to win every day. And so it's one of those things, once you're in it, you realize you can see it permeates the walls. You look around and everyone is on the same page, and it just kind of happens naturally. And we had that. That's
so cool. Todd, you played for Bobby Valentine, and how is he able to keep you guys focused? And how do you think Carlos Mendoza is able to do that with this group right now?
I'll start with Carlos. Look, I think Carlos was a phenomenal choice. I don't know that I or many Mets fans knew a whole lot about Carlos coming in, and it was a head scratcher initially because there was so much emphasis being put on Craig Counsell and the David Stearns relationship. But Carlos has been really impressive. I think he's got a great rapport with the players. I think he's a very honest communicator. He's very authentic with the press, and I think he protects his players, but expects something out of them as well, and expects them to be accountable for their actions, which I think is something that is instrumental in today's game. So I think he's done a phenomenal job, and I think he's a leader in that clubhouse as well. That said, Bobby Valentine was a very different type of manager, very strategic manager, didn't have a bunch of team meetings, wasn't ever a yell and scream guy, but he had a way to motivate guys to feel like we were the underdog and to play above maybe our own capabilities. And that team that we had in 2000 was obviously a very good team, but we didn't have the Scherzer type personalities like Trevor's talking about in Lindor, big contract guys. You had Mike, who was an amazing player, but Mike was never a guy that wanted to be a vocal leader. He led by going out there, posting up every day, being behind the plate. But you got Al Leiter and Johnny Franco and Dennis Cook and Turk Wendell and Mike Hampton as a pitching staff that, kind of would take the ball anytime, and Robin Ventura, myself, Edgardo Alfonso, guys that just found a way to kind of grind it out. And so I think, we just always felt like we were kind of in a foxhole together, and coming down the stretch, we thought, hey, nobody's going to be able to get past us, because if we're close within 5 or 6, winners find a way to win, losers find a way to lose. And that was the mentality that we took right to the final pitch.
Trevor, I want to switch gears a little bit. So by the end of the season, it's September 12th, which is crazy in my opinion, because I feel like this season flew by. But I'm sure there's a physical toll. how do you mentally stay focused when the physical part is probably not at its peak at this point in the season, but you need to play like it is?
That's a great question. It's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do. Sometimes you just have what you have. I think it comes down to kind of what happens is anything else that requires energy from you, and I think that loved ones, this is understanding amongst the wives and the families as well, as like I need to use every little bit of my battery for the game, and we're going to focus on that. And it's so important to have a support system that like kind of allows you to do that. And so that's a big one. Everyone's in a different kind of mindset at this point, especially around the league. There's teams that are out of it. There's teams that are close, but they're not really that close. Teams trying to play spoiler, teams just waiting to go home. And then there's teams that expect to be continuing to play. In all honesty, I think the Mets are in one of the best positions you can be going into the playoffs, where you're kind of clicking a little bit. And the energy is just kind of naturally coming because you like have to. It's like your back's against the wall a little bit, but you're also playing really well. It's a nice sweet spot to where it's not really hard to maintain that energy. But when it comes to like keeping your body healthy, you're just prioritizing rest, and you're just doing everything you can, and knowing that as long as you do everything you can, that's all there is. It's just there's only so much you can do in a short amount of time. So relatively healthy, thank God, for the team, and guys are just trying to get that second wind continuing as they move forward and try to make a run here.
That's such a good point when you say that the Mets are quite possibly in the best position that you can be in, because well, Todd, I'm a big tennis fan. In the U.S. Open, there's a little sign by Billie Jean King that says pressure is a privilege. And it is really in this case because you don't have, you're not struggling necessarily to make the postseason, but you're also not in a position where you made the postseason with your season, in May and June. So I really like that perspective. But Todd, obviously it is an off day and they have another one in, I think, 11 days. How does an off day in September compare to an off day earlier in the season? And would you rather play nonstop right now or have as many off days as you possibly can heading in to the postseason?
That's a great question. I think there's a balance, and I think it goes to what Trevor said. I think an off day right now, one off day is a welcome sight. I think you travel from one road game to another road city, get a day off where you can sleep into your hotel, you can hang out with the guys. I think in September, more than any other month, on teams that I was on that were still in some kind of contention, these off days were a bonding time for the guys too. You got we have team dinner sometimes in 2000 on an off day, like a day like today, where you get 18 or 20 guys go to dinner together and really kind of take it to that next level of really sort of bonding and making sure that chemistry stays solid, and kind of feeling the vibe that you want to continue with down the stretch. So I think an off day like today is great. I think that there's some issues in going to the next point, with the playoff structure and getting to a point where you may clinch the season with a week left in the season and then have off days before you play. I think that can be troublesome. I think that's tough to maintain the same kind of rhythm and energy and tenacity. But right now, off days are a welcome thing. And I think they're a way for the team to kind of continue to meld into the team that they want to finish like.
Yeah, except when you're off day, we're doing shows. So their off days are not our off days, Todd, as we know.
Well,
but
our grind is not quite. I think our grind is not quite as bad. The fans are going to be on us if they don't get to the playoffs. So I think we're safe.
No, I just wanted to, play the world's smallest island. Okay, so this wildcard race has 4 teams vying for 3 wildcard spots. Right now, the Mets are a game ahead of the Braves for the 3rd wildcard spot, with Arizona sitting 2 games ahead, and then San Diego's a game and a half ahead. So Trevor and then Todd, how often did you scoreboard watch in the heat of the playoffs when you were playing?
It's hard not to. I don't want to speak for Todd, but I'll say I'm a bullpen pitcher, so we have a lot of time just sitting there scanning the stadium. And as we know, especially now, scores are everywhere constantly, especially when you're chasing a team. We're seeing highlights from them. You're seeing their score pop up all the time. The fans are reacting. So it's really hard not to if you don't want to. So you just kind of lean into it. And also, it didn't affect me as much because I don't have that big of an effect on the game. Like I can't, I don't have to go play all 9 innings. So I think it's a luxury maybe for a reliever to take those things in. But yeah, scoreboard watching is just something that happens, and it's part of the excitement. And if you try to avoid it, it's next to impossible. I just went and grabbed some food up here in Seattle the other day, and went to a sports bar to grab it. And I look up, and there's 3 baseball TVs with baseball on. All 3 of them are the Houston Astros game because they're just watching to see how Houston's doing. Mariners playing at the same time. They weren't even watching the Mariners. They needed the Astros to lose. So it's definitely a thing that fans feel, and players definitely feel it as well.
Yeah, what's crazy is, so even if you delete all your social media or you don't watch any TV when you're at home, every time I've been on the road with the team, the road clubhouse has like MLB Network on, and it's like people are just watching. You have no choice. You literally can't escape it. But last year, the Diamondbacks got in with 84 wins, and this year it's looking like the 3rd wild card spot. It's going to be closer to having 89 wins, which is pretty crazy. So, Todd, how do you feel about the expanded wild card situation?
Look, I personally like it. I like it because of the fact that we're talking about a lot of teams right now in September, and there's nothing worse as a player, and I think there's nothing worse as a fan, maybe even worse for a fan, to be on a team this time of the year where you've got nothing to play for and you're literally playing out the string. So the fact that there's opportunities for, maybe 5 or 6 teams, if they got hot right now, to still find a way to make it to the playoffs, I think that's great for baseball. I think that there's some flaws, as I mentioned, in the fact that, you get that bye series out of the gate. If you win the division, you get rewarded by getting time off, which we've seen that be detrimental to teams over the last couple of years. The Dodgers and the Braves come to mind. But I do like the expanded wild card. I think it's I'm glad they went to 3 games instead of the 1-game playoff, even though that's kind of cool. It's hard for a team that may have had a better record than a division winner in another division to end up getting eliminated with 1-game playoff. So I like the 3 games now.
Trevor, you're very well versed in the league as a whole. Which team do you see staying hot, and which team do you see kind of floundering?
Ooh, are we talking about the teams going for the playoff spots? That's a tough one because I think the way it is shaken out right now, I think it's ideal. I know this isn't very exciting for the race at the end of the day, but the 3 teams that are in right now, the Mets in the 3rd spot, if it stayed there, that would not surprise me one bit. Just judging by what we talked about at the top of the show with the Mets are doing enough to win the game. It's not how you win it. It's just that you win it at this point. And they're doing that. They're doing a really good job with that. And I think everyone's doing their job really well. I don't see them slowing down much at all. There's no reason to think that, health permitting. So I just think they're in a better position at this moment. And if we're talking about, not that I think the Braves are going to fall apart either, but I just think that the Mets have had a little bit more go their way, and the guys are clicking a little bit more better, and the chemistry is a little better. It's a little more consistent. So in terms of anyone outside of those 2 teams making a push, I think at this point it's too much needs to happen to several other teams. And we're seeing this, I think, on both sides, where there's 4 teams going for 3 spots, and then outside of that, there's a couple like 3 or 4 games out. But you just, instead of needing 1 game to collapse or 1 team to collapse, you need 3 teams to collapse to get in, and that makes it a little bit harder. It's almost like there's so many teams going that can be in the playoffs now that it's the opposite side of that coin at times, where like now there's too many teams to compete with, and where you need help, where scoreboard watching is really important, and probably is going to happen because statistically it's very not likely. So that's I know that's not a super exciting answer, but I really do think that the way the Mets have played now and where the time they're doing it, every time we get a team doing these type of things and making a push like this, when they get in, they make a run. I know it's been a few years since this has happened for the Mets team, so it's great to see.
No, I think it's a good point. And for this week's viral moment, we bring in our SNY social media rock star, one of my favorite humans, Matt Spenley.
Thanks, Michelle. So kind, so kind. All right, guys, what's up? I'm sorry I'm a little blurry here, so I'll make it quick. Trevor, you tweeted last week. I know I'm supposed to be unbiased these days, but Let's Go Mets. So I have to ask you, a lot of positive reception to that. People remember your time fondly. How does it feel to be aboard the Mets bandwagon for this run in September?
It feels great. I mean, I'll be honest, guys. If there's a parade, I'll come be in the crowd in the parade. I think that would be
You're on record.
one of the craziest probably experiences I'll ever have in my life. So I'm in being on this side of things now. Like, I totally kind of forgive myself a little bit for feeling the way that I did sometimes as a player, frustration with whatever. But it's I get it. I was wrong most of the time, and I'm super excited to be here. And it's just the most visceral fandom there is. So I love that. I love doing these tweets, dude. This was like one of my favorite things to do. I'm sad. It's one of the saddest things about being retired now is that I don't do this as much. And so I thought I would bring it back out. And I realized that there was a guy in that game that I had never done one for, and Mark Vientos. So I was like, ooh, I got to come up with a new one. So that was pretty cool too.
We may or may not be coming back to the emojis later in the show, so stay tuned. Put your thoughts in there. Todd, just for you played famously for a lot of teams in your career, and obviously you work with us now, but how did you go about after your playing days finding a team that you kind of latched onto and would root for?
Look, I played with a lot of teams. I grew up as a Dodger fan. I grew up in Los Angeles. My dad went to the first game I ever played at Dodger Stadium. When I came home to play for the Dodgers, I thought, okay, this is where I want to end my career. And had a great 97, was off to a great 98. And then, like happens in baseball, a big wrench got thrown into it. His name was Mike Piazza, right? So Mike and I got traded for the Dodgers to the Marlins. He comes here. I go to Texas, and I end up here. So some of the love lost, that I would have held, as a fan for the Dodgers is gone. So then I think really it comes down to the reality that I spent probably the three most significant moments of my career as a New York Met, and that's what led me back to being involved with this organization. Plus, the organization was always very, very good to me. But 2000, I'm in a World Series here. 2001, go through 9/11. I spent, all day again yesterday with firefighters and people that I've become friendly with, and that I make, a lot of, time to spend time with over the years. And that's been probably the most important part of my work as a baseball player or post-baseball player. And then I ended my career here. So I think it was pretty easy for me to kind of find out where my allegiances lie. And I have no problem rooting against all those other 10 teams that I once played for.
Good to know. And safe to say Mets fandom is definitely one of a kind. So welcome to the bandwagon, everybody. Michelle, back to you.
The bandwagon. If there's one thing Mets fans are not, they're bandwagon fans. That's for darn sure from my experience. All right. So, Trevor, you mentioned it earlier. You were famous amongst Mets fans for tweeting after wins and assigning your teammates specific emojis. So there was a unicorn for Lindor. There was a star for Starling Marte. But like you said, most recently, there was kind of like a dash-like emoji, like wind emoji for Mark Vientos. Do you care to explain?
Yeah, viento is wind in Spanish, so winds would be his name. Yeah, that is not a reference to his
speed.
No, it is not. I could see where the confusion would be. I think probably top of that list would be Mark. Would be confused. So yeah, no, it just means wind in Spanish.
Obviously, if you're bilingual, you would know that. Okay. What about Jose Iglesias? Well, we have new faces, so I kind of want to hear what you got for some of these new guys.
I would probably do like the terrified face emoji, like for oh my god, probably.
Oh, that's good.
Or if I didn't check. I know that Apple adds these constantly. I usually use just the defaults. I don't know if there is an OMG. If there is, then that's obviously it. But if not, then the frightened face, I think.
I feel like there should be like a music emoji or like a.
Oh yeah, or like a music note. Yeah.
I figured he'd be prayer hands or something, but I like the.
That works too.
I like the oh my god, yeah, that's good.
That's funny. Okay, what about Luis Severino, Trevor?
Oh, Sevy. That one's tough. Try to do a play off the name. I don't know. Sever keeps coming to my head, which I don't know what I would do with that. maybe an ambulance. I don't know if that goes well either. This would be one where I would sit there and I'd like turn to Taiwan Walker and I'd say, hey, what should I do for Sevi? By the way, he was my kind of secret. He would give me some feedback and
you got the assist.
If I was stuck, he would give me some good ones. He had a really good one for like Yarme. The Magic Man was him.
That's good. I feel like Sevi's really sneaky funny, so maybe like a laughing, crying.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm not good at this. Just you don't have to take my suggestions, Trevor. I know you're being polite. Okay, Todd, I know you have a couple ideas. What about Sean Manaea?
Look, Sean Manaea, to me, I wish there was like a really great, like a mellow, but because he's just a big mellow guy. But I think what I like about him, he's kind of the tornado lately. He, adjusted his motion a little bit, comes a little bit more from the side, whips around, and he's blowing people away. So give him the tornado for me. I like that one for Sean. He's been outstanding. He's been so fun to watch, and I still love his post-game interviews. They're some of my favorite things to watch.
He's the best. Okay. Trevor, Francisco Alvarez.
I thought I had one for Alvy. I cannot remember what it would be. Maybe catcher's mask one. There is one. I think there's an umpire.
There is.
With the catcher's mask. Or maybe I just go with that. I think that if I had like a couple, because I would be putting them on there probably pretty regularly, that it would probably develop over time and I'd come up with something, some inside joke that I would have to explain. But I think that's a good one to start with. Start there. Sometimes guys get upgraded.
What about Jesse Winker?
That's a wink. That's easy. He was
Cute.
in that last one too.
Yeah, that's
He's
smart.
the wink before the Vientos dash. So wink, that one's easy.
Okay, you already had that one. Todd, what about JD Martinez?
JD, I don't really know well, but from observing him, from meeting him a couple of times, he seems very wise to me. So I think, and there's not a great like wise man. I wish there was a sage or something that was an emoji, but I think the wise emoji is like an old buffalo that looks like it's on the range, and he's kind of bullish and been around a long time. So I think the old buffalo sage wise man is fitting for JD.
I think a camcorder, because that guy watches more video than anyone I've ever met in my entire life.
Oh, that's good. Is he watching video of himself or the other pitchers?
No, himself. Swings.
All the other pitchers? Oh, got it.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure he's also watching his opponent, but yeah, the only thing that he can control really is himself. Trevor, what about Harrison Bader?
I'd probably play off the name Harrison. Go with something, some character like Harrison Ford played. I believe there's like a safari guy in there that kind of looks like Indiana Jones.
Okay.
Indiana Jones. Or like a lasso whip. I don't know, something like that. I know those exist. I can't tell you exactly which ones they are, but that's where I would start. I would pull that thread and see what we come up with.
Okay. Well, now we obviously have to do the people on the show. So, Trevor, what would you do for Todd Zeile?
Oh God, he's not going to have any idea.
Oh, what would I do for Todd? Oof. I believe there is a guy with your hair, Todd.
Oh yeah,
with the black spike hair. I'd probably start there and go from there. The dark hair. It is I'd start there and then see like what is around. A lot of times I find one and then there's stuff similar or adjacent around it, and then I try to find something else. But that's where I'd probably start. I'd probably start with the hair.
I figured you'd probably go with a suitcase with a bunch of patches on it. Says I'm the freaking traveling man.
Or that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like where are you going to end up next?
Yeah,
exactly.
What I would do with you guys.
I feel like
I like that better. Actually, we'll do that suitcase.
I don't know if there's one that has like a bunch of people around or like friends, but Todd, you have more friends than like anyone I've ever.
They're not really friends, Michelle. It's all an illusion. I have a lot of acquaintances. Yeah.
Where would you put Trevor and myself in that category? Just out of curiosity.
Oh gosh, now Michelle, you're well. Now we have Michelle plus one, which is there. Do we have a little preggy emoji? Is there one that exists? because I was waiting for that for a long time, but there ought to be. There's a pregnant man. So
there is.
To be at least a pregnant woman.
There
right?
is. Also,
okay, so
you took that question totally different. I meant, where do Trevor and myself land in terms of friends or acquaintances? But you went with emojis, which is totally
emoji. It's great. And Trevor's an easy emoji because I used to, and I'm not just saying this because we're here, Trevor. I used to love when you'd come into the game and I would watch, and you always seemed to me like you were just going to be mad at whoever was in the box or mad at. And so I feel like it's this anger with the cuss words across the mouth. And, and it was like half the time you'd throw one ball, you'd be mad at yourself, and then you'd come back and fire and just blow people away. And I used to love it. I used to love when you'd come in and just I used to say to Gary Apple, I said, I just hope, because he seems like he's so intense and so physical, that your arm just doesn't come off your shoulder one time and just like fly to the plate, because you just used to attack the hitter. So that was one for me to you. I thought that was fitting.
That's not the first time I've heard that. I had some teammates that said that they thought I didn't like them because I was angry all the time. I'm not an angry guy. I just have one of those just big and resting, scary faces. I think one of the chefs for the Mets was like, "Oh man, I don't bother you because you look mad every time you walk in here." I was
That's
like,
funny.
6 months in, I feel bad now.
But the funny thing was that I realized what you're saying, because your interviews post game and stuff, you were not, there was nothing angry about it. It was very thoughtful. And I'm like, okay, this is just the game face, Trevor. Yeah. And that you put on when you walk on 60 feet from those guys at the plate. So I loved it.
I'm like the opposite. I'm just like a little chihuahua who's always angry at everything.
Is that your own? Is that your own self emoji? Your chihuahua?
I've heard that from family members.
Okay.
It's okay. We like chihuahuas. All right. So, Trevor, as a former starter turned reliever, we're going to switch gears here. What have you seen out of Jose Butto this season, who has found success doing the same?
Oh, he's picked that up like he was born to do it. Impressive. I think I don't think enough has been said about how important he has been to where the team's at this year. I love watching guys be able to go out there, and I had a pitching coach who always say, go kick up dust, just go throw as hard as you can for an inning and see which kind of stuff plays up. And he has been doing a great job. He made a lot of starters struggle with like deciding to throw only their best pitches and not like set guys up. It's like a different way of pitching. And he's gone out and just, it's a testament to him and also Jeremy Hefner and the coaching staff there, getting guys to buy into what makes them great. And he's done a great job. I can't say enough. And he's a great guy too, and hard worker. I got to play with him for a little bit. He threw, I was there for his debut. He's pretty much thrown great ever since he's been in the big leagues. So it's been awesome to watch. And those type of guys are so important for getting your team in a position to be there at the end of the year. And he's done a phenomenal job.
He's done a lot better than his debut. Because I was there for that as well. Yes. But he has come a long way, and I love watching him now. He's one of my favorite guys to watch, actually. But Todd, we have talked extensively, really since spring training all year, about the improvement on defense at third base from Mark Vientos. Is there anything recently that you've noticed that you would feel like has changed at all?
Just confidence. I think what you've seen out of him is a belief in himself. I mean, there's no question. We've talked about it. He talks about it, that he's had to have a belief in himself, because he's a guy that had done nothing but have success wherever he went, and then still had a lot of people doubting him. And why isn't he the guy that's being called up? He'll get called up and hit a walk-off and then get sent back down. So he's had to have great belief in himself to be able to continue to improve and succeed. But what I've seen at third base specifically is he plays deep. He relies on his arm. I think there's been work that Lindor's done with him on his footwork that's helped him improve his first step. His glove's been really sure. His arm strength is solid. I think the only thing that has really kind of dampened his defensive metrics is that because he plays so deep, he has a difficult time coming in on the ball, and that that'll have an impact on his defensive metrics. But I've been really impressed, and I thought when he first came and replaced Beatty, honestly, I thought, okay, this is going to be a temporary solution, and they're going to probably have to figure out a way to make him a DH in the future, or is he going to be a guy that replaces Pete if Pete doesn't come back? And those are all the different kinds of speculations that I think became a part of his early time here. And now I don't think that's the case at all. I think he's the third baseman, and I think he's the third baseman for this team until they want to put him somewhere else, or somebody else comes in and says, hey, you're going to be our first baseman or whatever. But he's solidified himself, and I'm proud to see what he's done.
Talk about another person who I love to watch now. He's really come into his own. So the Mets season this year has had a few similarities to the 2022 season that, Trevor, you were a part of. And one of them being that they are facing the Braves in Atlanta for the penultimate series of the year to determine the playoffs. So, Todd, one of those games in Atlanta is a makeup game from April. Do you feel like the Mets are in a better position now, or better shape now, to face this Atlanta team than they would have been if they had faced them in April?
Well, when they had faced them in April, they played well against the Braves on a couple. They're 5-5, I think, against them on the year. I think they could be 6-4 or 7-5, and they caught the Braves at some points where they were not clicking. So I don't know that it would have been. They might have had another win under their belt in April against this team. May, the Mets struggled. April, the Braves were struggling. So I'm not saying it's better or worse, but I do think that it's important for them to take 2 out of 3, win the season series. And, the Braves left, this last series against the Mets. Last time they played the Mets, they were cold, and then they got hot. A couple of their guys got hot right at the right time, and they kind of went on a little bit of a run. So the Mets are going to have to be ready to face a team that's eager to get back on the field with them. And I think the Mets match up well against them. I think they are not intimidated by the Braves anymore, or worry about the success they've had. I think they're ready to face them, and I think it's a good time for the Mets because of all the things that Trevor talked about. Just kind of finding the right time to find ways to win. I think that's a good time for them to go and face this Braves team.
Trevor, obviously you didn't get the results that you wanted when you went through this scenario, but what advice would you give to this group heading into that series specifically?
I think it's important to kind of look around and see where you're at. I think first of all, it's a much different dynamic. It's not like the Braves. The Braves were chasing us the entire time, and it just happened to line up perfectly momentum wise, which we just had to win one of those games to win the season series. And as we saw, we had the same record at the end of the year, and it ended up really biting us in terms of seeding. And it's kind of similar here, but with a little bit more, I think, in the Mets' favor. And I think they line up well, and they're playing really well right now. I think if you go in and you see it as an opportunity to go and make the statement in their park, and you see it that way, and that's exciting, as opposed to, oh no, we got to hold them off in their park. That is polar opposite mindsets, and I think they're in a better position to have that thought. I think that in 2022, some of that stuff was just kind of unavoidable with how everything seemed to have lined up in terms of how both our seasons were going and how things needed to go, and it just kind of was poetic in that way, and baseball tends to be that way. I think the tables have flipped a little bit, and that's in the other way. I think the baseball gods want the other thing to happen. It just feels that way if you're going by intuition. So I don't know, that's based on very little actual information and just a feeling, but it's exciting. I'm really excited to watch it, but they should go in and be excited. If you're a reliever, you get to come in the 6th inning and those lights go down and the chop not chop starts. Enjoy it. I had a blast. It was my favorite thing to do, was come in and running in. And it's supposed to be intimidating, and for some reason, wherever I was mentally that time, I felt like I was a pro wrestler coming in.
Fired you up.
Coming in like I was the villain coming in to ruin the day.
That's awesome.
And go in and be the villain. I think that's something that those guys could get behind and would really enjoy playing that role.
The Mets now have their own version of that at Citi Field.
There you go.
With the lights.
Oh yeah.
That's really cool. I love it. But now maybe we're pumping up the other team. We don't know. So now that we've looked at the end of the season, just a little tiny look ahead to now, the Mets face the division-leading Phillies in a 3-game set starting tomorrow. So as we wrap up this episode of Mets Off Day Live, how are you guys spending the rest of your off day? Todd, we'll start with you.
Really exciting stuff, Michelle. I get to head out to Jake's 58 and meet with some big Mets fans out there. So I get a little jump on a train and little casino. Hopefully I'll play a couple of hands of blackjack while I'm out there. Maybe look at the odds and when I go to the sports book, but we can't bet on the Mets. So I'll just look from afar.
Trevor?
For me, I get to go get a new car. I just got a new car. I got to go pick it up today. That's really exciting. I can't wait.
That is exciting.
And I have a final meeting with our midwives, as my wife is expecting, and we are less than 2 weeks away. So this could happen any day. There's a chance that I could be expecting a baby later this afternoon. I don't know.
Oh my goodness! Congratulations.
So, a lot of just kind of sitting and waiting at the moment, but the new car thing is a nice little exciting thing. Gotta
get that car seat.
Car seat in, exactly. That's what I have to do. I go pick it up, and then I got to go to the fire station and get my car.
I'm just going to say that's a little more exciting off day plans than I have, Michelle.
Yeah, that's what I got. But after that, nothing. So I'm gonna.
That's awesome. Out. Well, thank you both so much for joining us here on Mets Off Day Live, and thank you to all who are watching here. Mets Off Day Live, it's presented by Planet Fitness. If you join Planet Fitness for $1 down, the classic membership deal ends today, September 12th. So our next episode of Mets Off Day Live is Monday, September 23rd, which is the day before the Mets face the Braves in what could decide their playoff fate. So very exciting. For Trevor May and Todd Zeile, I'm Michelle Margaux, and enjoy your off day, everybody.